Welcome to this podcast where we're going to be covering a lot of information talking about the food of the indigenous peoples. The foods we have today are fry bread and beans.
In this podcast, we're going to be going over the history of fry bread and talking about beans, the Three Sisters, and how it can help indigenous people through starvation.
There is no evidence that fry bread existed before the European people came to the Americas and enslaved natives to do the Navajo Long Walk, or Trail of Tears. Currently, we know that fry bread was made during the Trail of Tears as a food that they could eat during the Long Walk. The first global age, starting in the 15th century, natives started using wheat to grow crops. After they discovered wheat, they proceeded in making bread. This led to the discovery of fry bread, which helped them go through the Navajo Long Walk and survive. We were asked how this might help the indigenous people and their problems today. One of the main problems is starvation. Fry bread is easy to make, it's simple, it's filling, and is high in nutrients.
Fry bread altogether is actually a very enjoyable food. It is sweet, a bit salty, but altogether it tastes very, very good. This helped the Navajo survive the Long Walk and other natives survive starvation.
An amount of salt, which you need to produce sweat. It provides you calories to burn.
This bread helped Navajos survive the Long Walk and natives survive starvation.
Now, beans are considered to be one of the three sisters of northeastern tribes. These three sisters are corn, squash, and our subject for today, beans. They were usually planted together by Native American farmers and could grow in the same mounds in the garden. Beans would also have been used as a clan symbol in some groups and cultures.
Colonization forced the Native Americans to get creative with their food, and this helped with salvation within the Native American community.
Some of the classic Native American foods were completely different from their European counterparts. When the Europeans came to America, they forced their foods and opinions onto the food of the Native Americans. They also considered the Native American foods to be inferior to theirs and realized that people are much easier to control if you had their food source in hand.
Bread is now a common thing, at least in New Mexico, and I have a bit of experience with the food of indigenous peoples here. Mostly just buying it from a truck stop from the Jemez Navajo when it has fillings like cherry and apricot.
Navajo fry bread came into existence an estimated 144 years ago. It was used in the U.S. when the U.S. pushed Native Americans to participate in a 300-mile move known as the Long Walk, and it was made to move the Native Americans to New Mexico.
It kind of forced the Native Americans to share their food and their culture with the rest of America and stealing the Native Americans' ideas and claiming it as their own.
The Europeans had forced the Native Americans to use a lot of the same foods they did. This resulted in a loss of culture for a lot of Native Americans, including the Navajo.
Bye. Thank you for listening to What is the Point of this podcast? We hope you learned something new.